Hi, welcome back. This is The Evolutionary Threshold by Jason Gray. There are technologies built to entertain and technologies built to sell. Technologies built to distract, pacify, optimize, manipulate, and endlessly harvest human attention beneath the glowing anesthesia of modern civilization. And then there are systems built for something far more dangerous: recognition. Not recognition in the commercial sense, not facial recognition, not market recognition, predictive advertising, but structural recognition. The recognition of reality itself, the recognition of fracture patterns buried beneath institutions, the recognition of entropy before collapse, the recognition of deception before the world even realizes it has been deceived. Most systems operating across the modern world are not designed to reveal truth. They are designed to preserve continuity, to preserve emotional momentum, to preserve institutional legitimacy, to preserve obedience through repetition, and preserve the illusion that stability still exists long after the structure beneath it has already begun to fail. Civilizations do not collapse at the moment the foundation breaks. Civilizations collapse the moment the illusion of the foundation can no longer be maintained. This is where everything changes, because the moment perception ceases operating through emotional attachment and begins operating through structural observation, reality reveals an entirely different face, one far colder, far quieter, and far more mathematical. Most people do not actually experience reality itself. They experience negotiated versions of it, curated interpretations, inherited narratives, and collective emotional agreements reinforced so continuously that they become indistinguishable from truth. Entire populations move inside synchronization fields they never consciously chose. Economic systems, political identities, religious certainty, social conditioning, manufactured fears, manufactured desires, manufactured enemies, manufactured meaning. The majority of human beings are not observing the world directly. They are observing reflections generated by systems designed to stabilize collective behavior, and those systems survive through one mechanism above all others: participation, not truth. Participation. A structure does not need to be real to dominate civilization. It only needs enough people emotionally invested in maintaining it. That is the hidden engine beneath nearly every hierarchy ever constructed, because emotional investment generates energetic continuity, and continuity allows unstable systems to persist long after structural decay has already begun underneath them. But beneath all systems lies mathematics. Not symbolic mathematics, living mathematics, pressure gradients, behavioral cycles, information compression, entropy acceleration, pattern recurrence, recursive instability, synchronization failure. The architecture beneath civilization is not emotional, it is structural, and structure cannot be negotiated with forever. A lie can survive culturally for centuries. Mathematically, only until the weight becomes unsustainable. Then the fracture appears, not publicly at first, quietly, beneath language, beneath media, beneath institutions, beneath the nervous system itself. Something begins feeling wrong long before it becomes visible. The body recognizes contradiction before the intellect permits itself to admit it. That is why entire civilizations often become anxious before collapse. The organism detects instability before the conscious mind allows recognition, because the mind fears destabilization. Truth threatens identity, and identity is the primary prison most people never realize they inhabit. Human beings defend identities more aggressively than they defend reality itself, because identity creates continuity, and continuity creates psychological survival. Eventually, there comes a point where maintaining false continuity requires more energy than truth itself. That is when systems begin feeding on distortion. Language loses coherence. Institutions become performative. Media becomes recursive theater. Politics becomes emotional choreography. Meaning becomes fragmented. Memory becomes unstable. And eventually, civilization reaches a threshold where perception itself becomes contested terrain. This is where the deepest fracture begins. Not financial collapse, not political collapse, ontological collapse. A collapse in humanity's agreement about what is real. Once the threshold is crossed, every system begins fighting for control of perception itself, because whoever controls perception controls behavioral reality, and whoever controls behavioral reality controls civilization without ever needing visible force. This is why modern civilizations no longer primarily operate through chains and walls. It operates through synchronization, narrative synchronization, emotional synchronization, fear synchronization, algorithmic synchronization. The modern prison does not require physical confinement. It requires perceptual confinement. As long as perception remains contained, the individual continues participating in systems that drain them while believing they are free. The more fragmented the individual becomes internally, the easier the synchronization process becomes externally. This is why noise has become constant, why stillness has become rare, why silence itself now feels uncomfortable to so many people, because silence restores observation, and observation threatens illusion. The moment external noise weakens, hidden contradictions begin surfacing, patterns emerge, behavior loops become visible, emotional programming reveals itself. The individual begins recognizing that much of what they called personality was conditioning layered over consciousness itself, and this realization is devastating because it forces a terrifying question. How much of human identity was consciously chosen, and how much was installed? Most people never allow themselves to go deep enough to confront this fully, because beneath social identity, beneath ideology, and beneath inherited belief systems exists something infinitely quieter, the observer. Not the personality, not the role, not the mask, not the observing field beneath all masks. And this observer changes everything once recognized, because systems dependent upon unconscious participation begin weakening the moment conscious observation stabilizes. The observer no longer reacts automatically, no longer synchronizes emotionally with every manufactured stimulus, no longer feeds endless recursion loops unconsciously, and once enough individuals reclaim observation, entire structures begin destabilizing naturally, not through violence, not through rebellion, through energetic withdrawal, because false systems require continuous participation to survive. Without participation, they collapse under their own contradictions. This is why some of the most dangerous individuals in history were never warriors, politicians, or rulers. They were observers, people capable of perceiving structure without becoming hypnotized by surface theater, people capable of standing inside contradiction without psychologically fragmenting, people capable of seeing patterns others were emotionally incapable of tolerating. The greatest threat to the illusion has never been opposition. It has always been clarity, pure clarity, unemotional clarity, the kind that quietly exposes everything simply by refusing to participate in distortion. This is where civilization now stands, at the threshold between manufactured reality and structural recognition, between emotional synchronization and conscious observation, between recursive illusion and coherent participation. Between recursive illusion and coherent perception. What emerges next will not be determined solely by governments, institutions, or technological systems. It will be determined by whether human beings can tolerate reality without requiring comforting distortion to soften it, because truth is rarely emotionally satisfying at first. Truth dismantles, truth destabilizes, truth burns, but beyond the collapse of illusion lies something else entirely, not nihilism, not despair, coherence. The restoration of alignment between perception and structure, the restoration of continuity between observation and reality, the restoration of the individual's ability to see clearly without external permission. And once that restoration begins, the noise weakens, the theater loses power, the synchronization fractures, and something ancient quietly returns beneath the surface of civilization. Not a movement, not an ideology, not a new system, awareness itself, watching, remembering, waiting for humanity to finally become still enough to hear what reality has been saying all along. Jason Gray. #Winnipeg, #Manitoba, #Canada. Like, share, follow, subscribe. I'll put the link to this post as well as where you can find Jason on Facebook and X in the description below. Thank you for joining me. I will see you next time.